Carson Wentz is being dealt to the Colts, where he will be reunited with Frank Reich, who was his offensive coordinator in Philly for 2 seasons. The Eagles will receive a third-round pick in this year's draft and a conditional second-round pick next year. The conditional pick could be a first if Wentz plays 75% of the Colts' offensive snaps. But post-trade, however, Jake Glazer reported that other teams, including the Bears, never made offers for Wentz to the Eagles. So, Shannon, did the Colts give up more than they really had to here?
No, because you don't know that. See, Jay has the luxury of calling around teams. If the Eagles didn't have that luxury, and if they call around the team, is not going to tell them, we offer the first and the third, or we offer this. They're not going to tell you. Skip, it's kind of like going to an auction. Well, if I'm at the auction right there with the person, I see who's bidding. I'm looking at him, I'm sizing him up. I've seen him at this auction before. He likes these type of cars. I might be in for the running. I might have to up this thing to go a little further than I wanted to, as opposed to someone being online that you can't see, and he has someone bidding for him. So that's what the Eagles were up against. They were bidding against, they didn't know am I bidding against somebody I know or someone I don't know. But if you believe you've got your guy, Skip, as you said yesterday, no price is too much. The question is, how much damage has been done to Carson Wentz mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically? Because I told Mike, Skip, remember last week, Mike Vick and I had this conversation. I said, Mike, he's gone. I said, he ain't coming back. I said, I know you want him to be back, but he gone.
Yep.
I said, and plus the thing is, when you bench a guy like that, Skip, that's not a 5th-round draft pick. That's not a guy that was somewhat of a starter and, fell out of the rotation. The guy you traded, you moved heaven and earth to move up in the draft to select him. You paid him a king's ransom, and you benched him. You don't come back from that. That's not, Skip, if it's his rookie season, you could overcome that. You can't do that to a guy in his 4th or 5th year and think he's going to bounce back from that. So the question is, can they repair him mentally, physically, emotionally, and psychologically? Skip, he was on pace to get sacked 67 times, which have been the 4th most in NFL history. He missed the last 4 games. So we said he turned the ball over more than any other quarterback, and he missed 4 games. He threw more interceptions, and he missed 4 games. He also led the league in getting sacked, and he missed 4 games. So what guy are they getting? Frank Reich believes he can repair Carson Wentz, because the thing when Carson Wentz was at his absolute best, Skip, what did he have? An outstanding offensive line, a very good running game. He had the Winnebago, LeGarrette Blount, and Jay Ajayi. They could run the football. The receivers could make plays. That offensive line is outstanding in Indy. He had that when he was on a cruise. What was he, 11-2, Skip? I think when he tore his knee out here at L.A. So I believe they have that. The only question I have, Skip, have the Eagles and what happened to him the last 8 weeks. Well, no, take that back, Skip. Let me take it back. Did what happened to him the moment they turned that card in and said, with the 2nd-round draft pick, we select Jalen Hurts, have too much damage been done to him mentally for him to overcome that? I believe he landed in the perfect spot. He landed in a spot where a guy believes in him. Skip, and sometimes that's what you need. You need a guy that believes in you. The Eagles no longer believed in Carson Wentz. He no longer believed in them. The marriage had to end. So the question is, not if he, Skip, can he, because we know, like you said, he's 6'5", 245 pounds. The guy can throw. But now it's all about what's between the ears. Can they repair that? If they can repair that, they got themselves a good quarterback, and the price they gave up wasn't too steep.
Okay, I will give you this much. If any man on this planet can save and salvage Carson Wentz, it's Frank Reich, who obviously was his coordinator through that one blip of a great run that Carson Wentz had in 2017 before he tore up his knee. And he was, if not the MVP frontrunner, he was right in the thick of that race. I'm going to give you that. But that's all I'm going to give you, because the truth was, if Indy had played its cards a little more shrewdly, I think they could have gotten Carson Wentz for even more of a song. I think they could have just said, we'll give you this year's 2 and be done with it, and they would have gotten him for that. but they didn't really do enough due diligence or be able to read the tea leaves quite well enough to know what R.J. Glazer knew about Chicago and what the reporters in New England reported yesterday, which was the Patriots really had no interest in Carson Wentz. So let's step back for a moment for our viewers' sake and put this all in perspective. All you really need to know about Carson Wentz is he was the #2 overall pick in the draft. He's still under 30 years of age. He's still in his late 20s. And Philly was so desperate to get rid of him that they were willing to eat the all-time record amount of dead cap money, which is $33.8 million. That's their fault for paying him all that money to begin with, giving him a second contract. But they just said, we got to get out from under this. He's a disaster. He's unfixable. We have to do this now, not wait. We have to do it right now. And all you need to know about Carson Wentz is the Colts were bidding against themselves. There was no other market in the entire National Football League for a quarterback who had a little bit of an MVP run in 2017, who's still under 30 years of age, and was once upon a time the #2 overall pick. Nobody wanted him because they all believe he is damaged beyond repair.
Right.
Some of them might have thought that he wasn't that great to begin with. That was my stance with you on this show from day one. I did not watch him at North Dakota State enough. I saw the highlights, so I wasn't sure coming out of the draft. But after I saw him, especially against my team, my Dallas Cowboys in 2016 versus Dak Prescott, I thought right away he's got too much deer in headlights in him. I don't see consistent accuracy from him. I don't see consistent feel for playing the hardest position to play in sports. I don't see the touch, the poise, just the ability to make the play when it needs to be made. And then as it developed, he did not demonstrate the leadership intangibles that you need to play that position and be the face of a franchise and the voice in a locker room. So the player I just described was the anti-Tom Brady. And I am sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings for Colts fans, but he will ultimately disappoint you in Indianapolis because obviously we're not talking about Peyton Manning here. I don't think we're even talking about Andrew Luck. And I had some concerns, some misgivings about
No. He's not as good
Luck.
as Andrew Luck. No, he wasn't as good as Andrew Luck.
Okay,
No,
well, what I'm saying is don't start putting him even on the Luck pedestal yet because he's not going to be Andrew Luck either. So the problem is...
Could he be Phillip Rivers?
Phillip Rivers was pretty good last year.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
they got to the playoffs, right? And
but that's what
they played Buffalo pretty well in that first playoff game, right?
But that's my thing, Skip. Do you believe he can beat Phillip Rivers? Phillip Rivers couldn't throw the ball over 30 yards. So
I don't.
He can't. You don't believe he can beat Phillip Rivers?
I don't. But again, Phillip Rivers is about as crafty, as shrewd an operator as who ever played the position.
Right.
He did more with less arm than anybody who ever played the position because he knows how to play. He could just see it and feel it and make the play at the time. And again, Phillip Rivers always came up a little bit short. And we talked about his legacy was he never quite got you there. But he did a lot of great things. And so, no, I do not think Carson Wentz, if we just do prototype, if we put him in the vacuum, he's got 5 times the arm that Phillip ever had in his life. And he's a big, strapping young man, still a young man, who will, if it calls for it, he will try to run through a brick wall for your football team. And what he did down the stretch, again, in a terrible division a year ago, he helped lift up a team that was playing with a lot of practice squad players into the playoffs. But the problem was he lasted 2 series in his first ever playoff game and went, 1 of 3 for 4 yards. That's his playoff legacy in total. So you don't even know how he's going to play in a playoff game. I know how Phillip Rivers will play in a playoff game. He'll play pretty well. He came up short a few times, but he also won some big playoff games.
But the thing is, Skip, is that you say that he didn't play well, but you look at what he had. You give him Dak Prescott's offensive line and those skill positions.
Yep.
Do we believe we having this conversation about Carson Wentz? The question, for me, the thing is, I believe he can be. I mean, people don't realize Phillip Rivers had a very good career. Phillip Rivers somehow ended up throwing for more passing yards, more passing touchdowns than Dan Marino. And Dan Marino is a top 100 player in NFL history.
Yep.
And somehow Phillip Rivers, with his ability, Skip, Phillip Rivers could not run me or you currently. And I hadn't run in a decade.
I got it.
And you don't do any sprints. And Phillip Rivers could not run either one of us. But he found a way to get it done with the ability that he has. Carson Wentz has more ability. He's more mobile. He's more athletic. He has a bigger arm. The question is, the one thing that we never questioned about Phillip Rivers was his mentality, was his mindset. Was he tough physically? Was he tough mentally or emotionally? We know he was rock solid in those areas. Those are the questions. I think it, Skip, is more so mentally and psychologically with Carson Wentz than it is physically, because we knew he took a beating. I mean, he got sacked 50 times. He was on pace to get sacked 67. So you can recover from that because he didn't take any more beatings after December. And so now he's in a new place, rejuvenated. But the question's going to be, Skip, I don't want to hear nothing about no OTAs or he looks good at OTAs in minicamp.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to see Carson Wentz in actual game, live fire, to have an honest assessment of whether or not he's moved past what transpired his last year in Philly.
I got it. By the way, quick aside, just for the record, I do, and you know this for a fact, I run one long sprint every day of my life, and it's all the way from my dressing room up to the studio.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not late.